In this video, we're going to break down an analysis of over 100 content creators who all make more than $50,000 per month. And the findings were really interesting. They all have a unique version of the same system. And so we're going to look at the patterns across how they create content, how they structure their offers, and what are the key differences between these 100 really successful creators and everyone else. And so if you're a coach, creator, or consultant looking to install the same exact system as this, just click the first link in the description. And so as we jump into the analysis, every single one of these creators runs 4 functions across every piece of content that they post. And using Jun Yu as a really solid example, every single piece of content that he posts is attract, orient, prove, or convert. It all boils into one of these 4 functions. An example of this would be an attract piece of content is made for broad reach. He does this through relatable or inspiring pieces of content. And the whole goal is to get people, new eyeballs, onto his page. Because ultimately you have to feed the top of the funnel, and he does that organically. And so if we look at this reel, he got 2.4 million views. And it's basically a subsection of like 5 years experience, 1 year experience, and 1 week experience. And it shows the discrepancy and differences of experience throughout each layer. And then once he attracts people, he then orients them. He filters for this specific person that he wants to be targeting, right? So generally this is done through value or educational based content. And so this gets specific people to raise their hand. And then what he does is he proves that the mechanism that he's selling works. Right? So it's like how much I've made as a content creator every single year, and he goes through 1 through 6 years here. And then lastly, after people have raised their hand and self-selected, he then layers in conversion content. And so it's like my #1 online content masterclass is back. Effectively, what he's doing is he's driving the filtered traffic to some sort of webinar or masterclass where he can sell one to many. And it's a clear CTA. People know exactly what they're asking for here. And something to notice too is like as you go down the funnel, the views get tapered off. 2.4 million to attract, 1.2 million to orient, 500K to prove, and then 167K to convert. And so he's truly mastered this content funnel, the organic content funnel here. And something to keep in mind too is that Jun does not use CTAs every single day. He follows a more structured cadence that doesn't wear out his audience, because if you're constantly trying to sell, you're not going to get as much engagement. And we're going to dive into that a little bit deeper later on in this video. But before we do that, who am I and why should you even listen to me? My name's Trevor King. My twin brother and I got 415 million organic views in a single year. And now I run a business where I help personal brand like consultants engineer their content and acquisition to $30,000 per month. I made $45,000 last month, and my clients do very, very well. Preston got $5,000 in a single day. Tiffany was able to generate around $5,000 in a single week, later on hitting $20,000 that month. And we've had a bunch of other clients hitting multiple 5-figure weeks, as well as focusing a lot on brand growth and content strategy. Although we do optimize for views serving specific functions, that's not all you should optimize for. And as you can see through the content functions, like you can't only just optimize for views. You have to have other pieces of content that serve various functions for the organic funnel to work. And so Jun doesn't use CTAs every day. And something you should do after this video is you should map your last 10 posts by functions. You will probably see that there's a clear gap between what you're posting. You're probably over-indexed on attract content or over-indexed on conversion content. And then you never actually focus on the orient or prove. And therefore you're never actually providing value or nurturing your existing audience. And so I would highly recommend creating a content schedule where you can actually do the 3-2-2-1 framework, where you post 3 attract, 2 orient, 2 prove, and 1 convert piece. And you could even see this with Shelby Sapp as well, right? She posts attract content and then she'll orient, getting people to raise their hand and getting a little bit more specific so that they self-select. And her proof content is a little bit more indirect. She displays proof through lifestyle associations. So things like mansions, cars, travel, all this like luxury lifestyle appeal. This is where she proves the mechanism that she's selling works. And then ultimately she'll convert you through some sort of webinar or masterclass selling one to many because she has a large audience. Okay. And one of the most important things too is like, I need to paint a picture for you so that you can better understand the gap and the differences between what these people are doing and what everyone else is doing. And so the people who are actually successful, they have analyzed that every single post has to do a defined job before it is filmed. And so they map the function and they follow a very specific cadence so that the post is executing the desired function. And they also have a named thing. They have a like proprietary IP or proprietary system that they use within their personal brand. This could be just like the business or the mechanism or some sort of unique thing that differentiates themselves from everybody else. And they also all have a common enemy. They share an enemy about a worldview, not a specific person, but more or less a worldview. Maybe like leaving the 9 to 5 or just like, or being stuck as a content creator. And then they sell the mechanism in which that solves that specific enemy's problem, right? That worldview problem. And one of the most important things too is that they have an offer ladder. They have 3+ entry points for people at various financial situations. And a lot of the time you will see that they generally run a DM to call funnel, or they're doing content or ads to a webinar. These are the most popular ones and they're highly effective. But what everyone else is doing is they just post topics. They never like think about the functions, and they try to do lifestyle-led openings on content without having that pre-built authority. They have no clear enemy. They're spread evenly across 5 to 7 platforms. They never like isolate and get narrow on a specific platform to optimize for. They don't engineer a buyer path, and they have one offer at one price point. And so if we look at an example of this, let's just say we have 3 different types of buyers. We have 3 buyers here. We have one for a high ticket buyer, one mid ticket buyer, and one low ticket buyer. And let's just say the high ticket buyer is $10K, mid ticket buyer has $3,000, and the low ticket buyer has $500. If you only sell a high ticket offer, you can only sell to the high ticket buyer. These guys won't be able to buy, and you won't be able to maximize the amount of cash collected because you have nothing to sell them. But if you have an offer stack that hits all 3, you can now sell to all 3 financial situations, which maximize cash because you can sell to all buying powers. You then collect $13,500 when you otherwise would have only collected $10,000 because you only had one offer. And this is something that we see consistently across every single high ticket creator. They have offers for different financial buyer types. And so Julia does this really, really well. She has a low ticket, mid ticket, and high ticket offer, and she maps the offer based on the financial situation that the prospect or the lead is in. But generally what they do is they try to start with the high ticket offer and then they downsell continuously, because it's possible that you perceive this low ticket buyer as a low ticket buyer and maybe they're like financially unqualified, but they end up buying the high ticket thing. And you would have never got that higher mid ticket sale if you only tried to sell the low ticket product to this low ticket buyer. Again, sometimes people lie on their qualifications, so this is just something that you'd want to map and route them from high ticket down to low ticket. That way you have the opportunity to price anchor, and then these options become more appealing. And so like when you look at the actual function versus the buyer path clarity, it's like most of the 100 have engineered buyer movement, where the post function is completely optimized and they have a strong and intentional funnel or buyer path. Like everyone else is just super unclear on their posting topics and the buyer path. And so they sit here where they're never optimizing or engineering the buyer movement because they're just not posting the right functions. They're posting to pretty much everybody all the time, or they're only posting super specific content that never gets new people in the door. And then often the times they just have a link in the bio, which never ends up converting anybody because no one organically just clicks on the link in the bio and buys. So they don't have a strong engineered buyer path. So everyone else pretty much sits here. And so to go from here over to the 100, you need to make sure that your posting functions are mapped and you're following a specific cadence and you have a clear, strong, and intentional buyer path. And one of the most important insights that we got was that 80% of them have an offer that is directly tied to money. It's like the further away the outcome gets from making money or making new revenue, the harder it is to sell and scale. And so if we look at some examples here, there's the personal brand to generate inbound leads and calls. This is a very popular offer where you're optimizing the personal brand and the content so that is positioned in a way that generates inbound leads and organic calls, which then is directly translated to new money. And then you have other offers like selling the opportunity. This is like making money with TikTok Shop or e-com or high ticket sales or coaching, consulting, agency offers. And then you have another cash creation offer like cold email systems or outbound systems. Again, the closer you get to tying the outcome to new money or new revenue or a new opportunity vehicle where you can change your life and change your financial situation, the better it is to sell, the easier it is to sell. Why? Because people buy outcomes before they buy the mechanism. And so the easier ones to sell is more revenue, more clients, more leads, more sales calls. And the further away you get from cash creation offers, the harder it becomes to sell. So it's like brand clarity, brand authenticity, or like walking with confidence, or like entering rooms with confidence, or like leadership, right? Like these are just further from the money, and so they're much more difficult to sell. It's not to say that they don't sell, they're just much harder to sell. And this is why you see a lot of people going from like fitness coaching to then selling how to make money as an online fitness coach, or someone optimized for AI offers to then how to make money selling AI offers. It's not necessarily unethical because they learn the skill and learn how to make money as a fitness coach. Therefore, they're just repackaging their offer closer to the money. And so another insight is that they talk to the market constantly. So basically what they do is their content attracts prospects. They then have conversation with those prospects. And from that conversation, they hear objections, buyer language, pain points, buyer triggers, and they package those insights into content that then generates more prospects. And so effectively what they're doing is they're creating this never-ending loop of iteration, and they will continuously have new content ideas that brings in new people. Generally, this is mapped to orient content where they're like providing them a little bit more value and they're educating their audience, but this is technically what they do. They iterate over these conversations and they talk to the market consistently so they understand their buyer better than they understand themselves, versus most people who just like have no idea what insights to provide. They literally just copy the next person and they think that's what works because they don't have visibility into this process. They only see the end result. And so what they do is they just try to copy the visible signal of the content without knowing anything about the buyer type. And so the majority of the successful high ticket Instagram personal brands, they generally build meaningful distribution before selling seriously, but not necessarily before selling anything at all. And so a lot of them start with like early offers, like beta clients and like small services while simultaneously growing the content and the audience. And so what they're doing is they're building distribution and revenue over time in parallel. Stage one is most of the time the foundation, right? Your early content, you're building trust. And as you begin to gain that follower growth, this is when you can start to monetize and you collect your first revenue. You get beta clients, you get proof and feedback to make your content better and to make your program better. And then you're continuously building momentum. You get more content. You're getting more insights and data to optimize this content so that you can generate more revenue. This is literally what you should be doing. You should be doing parallel growth. A lot of people do the audience first, which still works. And so you can build an audience and then halfway through, maybe you're at 100K followers, then you can launch a product because you already know what the audience wants, because you're getting the market signals from the audience so that your offer can immediately work because you understand what the buyers want. And then you already have the distribution in order to sell that thing. And the thing that a lot of people do is that they try to sell first without a big brand or focusing on distribution. And so if your content is mostly promotional and it doesn't give people a reason to watch, save, share, or comment, the account tends to build less momentum. And so a lot of the time, the revenue can be lower at the same time because an account that feels too sales heavy often has less trust and weaker audience depth. And because you're trying to sell so hard, your distribution suffers and you never get more eyeballs because you're so focused on, you're going way too narrow. But this doesn't mean that it doesn't work. This can work, and there's a caveat. Some creators with small audiences can make millions of dollars, but the difference is that they have high value positioning. They have a deep niche. They have premium offers. They accelerate trust with their content. They have incredibly strong sales and relationships, and they have direct demand generation through their content formats. This is why you'll see some small creators make a ton of money and some large audiences who have low revenues because the large audiences lack the difference. And so something I want you to walk away with today is that you should be asking yourself, like, what function does my content serve on my page? Do I have a named thing? Do I have a common enemy? Am I relying on the link in bio as my buyer path? Do I have multiple entry points for people in different financial situations? Is my offer close to the money? This is a very important one. Do I talk to the market and leverage the insights to create content? And then lastly, what content functions am I over and under indexed on? Literally mapping the functions to your last 10 posts. This is how you're going to get insights and actionable insights to actually change what you're doing. And so hopefully this is helpful. I will see you in the next one, guys. Peace.